Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
A female millionaire requested an elderly artist to leave the plane due to animal smell. The city's international airport was bustling on a beautiful sunny summer morning. Amid the rush of travelers, one figure stood out, Bella, a woman around 50, dressed in a designer outfit with flashy jewelry. Her confident stride and proud gaze showed she was used to being the center of attention. Bella headed straight to the first-class boarding gate, pulling a luxury brand suitcase behind her. Her personal assistant struggled to keep pace, carrying the rest of the luggage. When she reached the waiting area, Bella wrinkled her nose as she noticed an unusual smell. "What's that disgusting odor?" she exclaimed, wrinkling her nose in distaste. Her gaze stopped on an elderly man sitting in the lounge. He wore simple, worn-out clothes, and his calloused hands revealed a lifetime of hard work. This was Simon, a 70-year-old freelance painter with a gentle face marked by deep wrinkles. Bella approached the airline counter, demanding to speak with the manager. "This is unacceptable," she said loudly. "That man cannot fly in first class. He smells like a barn." The manager, a young man named Miguel, tried to defuse the situation. "Ms. Montero, I understand your concern, but all passengers have the right to fly as long as they adhere to airline regulations." "Do you know who I am?" Bella replied indignantly. "I'm Steven's wife, the owner of the largest hotels in this city. I don't want to share a cabin with someone who smells like an animal." The commotion drew the attention of other passengers, including Simon. The old man slowly stood up and approached the counter. "Excuse me," he said in a gentle yet firm voice. "I don't want to cause any trouble. If my presence bothers her, I can take a different flight." Miguel looked at Simon sympathetically. "Sir, there's no need. You have every right to sit in the seat you purchased." However, Bella wasn't willing to compromise. She pulled out her phone and began making calls, threatening legal action and publicly shaming the airline. After a few tense minutes, the airport manager appeared, clearly uneasy. "Mr. Fank," the manager said apologetically. "We're very sorry about this situation, but we must ask you to change flights. Of course, we'll compensate you and upgrade you to first class." Simon looked at the manager, then at Bella, who was smirking. He sighed, accepting. "All right, I don't want to cause more trouble." As Simon gathered his belongings, Bella strutted around the other passengers. "That's how things get done when you have class," she said loudly. What Bella didn't know was that among the onlookers was a young journalist, Kara, who had captured the entire scene on her phone. Kara watched Simon leave with dignity as Bella boarded the plane as if nothing had happened. A few hours later, in a modest warehouse outside the city, Simon arrived home. His son, Marco, a handsome 28-year-old, was waiting anxiously. "Dad, what happened? Why didn't you get on the flight?" Simon smiled wearily. "It's nothing, son, just a minor issue. What matters is I'm home." Marco wasn't satisfied with the answer, but he knew his father well and understood he wasn't one to complain. He decided not to press the matter further. "All right, you're home. How about we take a look at the new paintings for the orphanage charity fund? I think we've made some significant progress." Simon's eyes lit up. "Of course, son. Show me what you've got." While the father and son were immersed in their work, on the other side of the city, Bella arrived home at her luxurious mansion. Her daughter, Nadia, a beautiful 25-year-old, welcomed her with a hug. "Mom, how was your trip?" Bella kissed her daughter's cheek. "Wonderful, darling, though I had to deal with some unpleasant people at the airport. But you know, one must always maintain high standards." Nadia smiled, accustomed to her mother's remarks. "Oh, Mom, there's something I wanted to tell you. I met someone very special." "Really?" Bella replied, suddenly interested. "Tell me, does he come from a good family?" "He's amazing, Mom. His name is Marco, and he's a freelance artist. He's smart, kind, and has big ideas to help the orphanage charity. Bella frowned. A freelance artist? Nadia, darling, you deserve someone better, someone from our social class. Mom, money isn't everything, Nadia countered. Marco is wonderful, and I'm sure you'd like him if you met him. We'll see, Bella replied, unconvinced. Now, if you don't mind, I need to rest after the trip. As Bella retreated to her room, Nadia took out her phone and smiled at Marco's message. See you at the cafe as usual. Of course, Nadia replied, not realizing that this simple meeting would lead to a series of events that would change their lives forever. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the cozy little cafe in the city center. Nadia Montero entered with a radiant smile, scanning the room for Marco. She spotted him at a table in the back, focused on his laptop. She sneaked up behind him and covered his eyes with her hands. Guess who? She whispered playfully. Marco smiled, immediately recognizing the soft touch of those hands. Let me guess, the most beautiful and intelligent woman in the world. Nadia laughed and sat down across from him. Such a flatterer. What are you working on? I'm reviewing the paintings my dad and I have been working on, the ones that could increase the charity fund, help more orphan children, Marco replied, showing her the paintings. I think we're close to a big breakthrough. Nadia looked at the paintings, captivated not by the brushstrokes but by the passion in Marco's eyes as he spoke about his work. It's amazing, Marco. I'm sure your paintings will bring a better life to those kids. I hope so, Marco said, with a mix of excitement and worry. My dad has invested everything we have into this work. It's his dream to use his passion to help someone in need every day. Speaking of your dad, Nadia said, taking Marco's hand across the table. I really want to meet him. Why don't we organize a dinner so our families can meet? Marco hesitated. I'm not sure, Nadia. My dad is a simple man, I don't think he'd feel comfortable in a more refined environment. Come on, Nadia urged. I'm sure my mom would be thrilled to meet him. Besides, it's time our families got to know each other, right? Before Marco could answer, a familiar voice interrupted their conversation. Nadia, what a surprise to see you here. They both looked up to see Kara, the young journalist who had witnessed the incident at the airport. Kara, it's so nice to see you, Nadia stood up to greet her friend. Kara, this is Marco, my boyfriend. Marco, this is Kara, an old friend from high school. Kara shook Marco's hand with a smile, but her eyes narrowed slightly as she recognized the resemblance between Marco and Simon. Are you related to Simon? Marco nodded, surprised. Yes, he's my dad. Do you know him? Kara exchanged a quick glance with Nadia before replying. Not exactly, but I witnessed something at the airport a few days ago involving him. An incident? Marco asked, frowning. My father mentioned there was an issue with his flight, but he didn't go into detail. Kara hesitated, recognizing the sensitivity of the situation. Well, there was a passenger. She complained about his smell and demanded he be removed from the plane. Marco's tension was evident. What? And they made him get off the plane because of that? Kara nodded sadly. The woman had a lot of influence and used her connections to pressure the airline. Horrified, Nadia covered her mouth with her hand. That's terrible. I can't believe someone could be so cruel. The worst part, Kara continued, was that the woman seemed to enjoy humiliating Mr. Simon. She paused before adding. Actually, I recorded part of the incident and was thinking of using it for an article on discrimination and abuse of power. Marco clenched his fists, trying to contain his anger. I can't believe my father didn't tell me about this. He's always protecting others, even at the cost of his own dignity. Nadia, moved by Marco's evident concern, hugged him. I'm so sorry, love. Your father is wonderful. Now I understand why you're so proud of him. Kara, feeling slightly uncomfortable, excused herself and left, promising to keep in touch. When it was just the two of them, Marco looked at Nadia with determination. "You were right, Nadia. It's time our families meet. Let's arrange that dinner." Nadia smiled excitedly. "Wonderful. I'll tell my mom to prepare everything. It will be an unforgettable evening." As the couple continued talking and planning the family dinner, neither of them could foresee the revelations and confrontations that gathering would bring. Across town, at the family business, Bella was meeting with her husband, Stephen. The man, with a stern expression and graying hair, listened attentively as his wife recounted the airport incident. "So, I put that wandering painter back in his place," Bella concluded smugly. Stephen frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "Bella, don't you think that was a bit much?" "Too much," she retorted indignantly. "Dear Stephen, we have a reputation to maintain. We can't mix with people like that." Stephen sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Sometimes I wonder if we're losing sight of what really matters." "What matters is preserving our status," Bella emphasized. "By the way, Nadia told me she's dating someone. An agricultural engineer, can you believe it? An agricultural engineer?" Stephen's interest was suddenly piqued. "That sounds intriguing." "Ridiculous," Bella sneered. "Our daughter deserves someone better." Meanwhile, in the painting-filled warehouse, Simon painted tirelessly despite his fatigue and pain. Marco watched him from afar, concerned. "Dad," he called as he approached. "You should rest a little." Simon straightened up, pounding his back with his fists. "No time to rest, son. We're doing this for the children, the orphans." Marco placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "We'll do it, Dad. But you also need to take care of your health." Simon looked at his son with pride mixed with sadness. "Marco, there's something I need to tell you. The doctors, they said my condition is getting worse." Marco felt like the world stopped for a moment. "What do you mean? Getting worse? Dad, why didn't you tell me sooner?" Simon sighed, leaning against the warehouse wall. "I didn't want to worry you, son. You know I never like to be a burden to anyone." "Dad, you're never a burden," Marco replied, embracing his father. "We'll get through this together. Tell me exactly what the doctors said." "They've given me a few more years, maybe less," Simon said, his voice trembling. "That's why it's so important for us to finish this project. I want to make sure you'll have a stable future, and that the orphans will have more funds to live on when I'm no longer around." Marco felt tears threatening to spill but held them back. "I promise we'll make it happen, Dad. And we'll find the best treatment for you. Don't give up, okay?" Simon gave a weak smile. "I never give up, son. That's one lesson I hope I've taught you." As they shared this emotional moment, Marco remembered the family dinner they had planned. "Dad, there's something else I want to tell you. I've met someone very special, and, well, I'd like you to meet her. We're going to have a dinner with her family." Simon raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "A formal dinner? You know I'm not used to those things." "I know, Dad. But it's really important to me," Marco insisted. "Nadia is amazing, and I'm sure you'll like her. Plus, her family is, well, they're influential people. They might help us get our paintings in front of philanthropists to help the orphans." Simon nodded slowly. "If it's important to you, son, I'll be there. I just hope I don't embarrass you with the manners of a poor, humble painter." Marco hugged his father again. "You could never embarrass me, Dad. You're the most respectable person I know." Meanwhile, at the Montero mansion, Nadia entered her father's office, looking excited. "Dad, it's so good to see you here. I have something important to tell you." Stephen looked up from his stack of documents and smiled at his daughter. "What's going on, my princess?" "I've arranged a dinner so you can meet someone very special," Nadia announced. His name is Marco, and, well, he's my boyfriend. Stephen took off his glasses, looking at his daughter with interest. The freelance artist your mother mentioned? Nadia nodded, surprised her mother had already told him. Yes, he's an incredible person, Dad. He's working on a charity project that could change the lives of many orphans. That sounds fascinating, Stephen replied, his eyes lighting up. I'd love to know more about that project. Great! Nadia exclaimed, thrilled by her father's interest. He's coming with his father for dinner next Saturday. Can you attend? I wouldn't miss it, Stephen replied with a smile, hiding his curiosity and a strange premonition. After Nadia left his office, Stephen sat back in thought. He opened a desk drawer and took out an old photograph. In it, a young Stephen smiled beside another man, both dressed in their high school uniforms, one holding a guitar and the other a paintbrush in a half-finished painting, both of them laughing heartily. He turned the photo over and read the inscription. Stephen and Simon, best friends. After all these years, he murmured, placing the photo back. The days passed quickly as both families prepared for the dinner. At Nadia's mansion, Bella supervised every detail with a keen eye. I want everything to be perfect, she ordered the staff. Even though I disapprove of this relationship, we still have to maintain appearances. Nadia, frustrated by her mother's attitude, tried to stay optimistic. Mom, please, give Marco a chance. I'm sure you'll be surprised. We'll see, Bella replied skeptically. At Simon's art-filled warehouse, Marco helped his father prepare for the dinner. Son, are you sure this outfit is okay? Simon asked, feeling uncomfortable in a suit he hadn't worn in years. You look fantastic, Dad, Marco reassured him. Just be yourself, that's more than enough. Finally, the night of the dinner arrived. Marco and Simon appeared at the grand mansion, both nervous but determined to make a good impression. Nadia greeted them at the door with a radiant smile. Welcome, please come in. As they stepped into the luxurious living room, none of those present could imagine how this meal would forever change their lives. Long-buried secrets were about to be unveiled, and unexpected connections between the two families would soon be discovered, sparking a series of events that would test their values, relationships, and true character. The dining room of Stephen's mansion sparkled under the chandelier's crystal lights. The table was set with fine porcelain dinnerware and silver cutlery, looking like a scene straight from a decor magazine. Bella, dressed in an elegant evening gown, observed with a stern look as Marco and Simon entered the room. Welcome, she said with a forced smile. Please, have a seat. Sensing the tension, Nadia tried to ease the atmosphere. Marco, Mr. Simon, let me introduce my parents, Bella and Stephen. Simon, though feeling out of place, extended his calloused hand to Stephen. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Thank you for inviting us to your home. Stephen, observing Simon with a strange mix of recognition and confusion, shook his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, he replied, his voice carrying an unhidden emotion that Bella picked up on. As everyone sat down, the servants began serving the first course. The initial conversation consisted of polite but clearly uninterested questions about Marco and Simon's work. So, you do freelance painting, wandering from place to place? Bella asked, her tone almost contemptuous. Sensing his father's discomfort, Marco decided to take the initiative. Actually, we're working on a fairly large charity project. It's a painting project for orphan children. These paintings will be sent to wealthy patrons, philanthropists who love handmade art. Our paintings truly express the hardships and emotions of people who have gone through many failures before finding success. We paint to support children who need proper care until they're 18. This statement caught Stephen's attention. That sounds interesting. Could you tell me more about it? As Marco explained the details of the charity project, Simon noticed Bella staring at him intently. Suddenly, a flash of recognition crossed her eyes. Wait, Bella interrupted. We've met before, haven't we?" Simon, who had feared this moment since entering the house, nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. We met at the airport a few weeks ago." A tense silence fell over the table. Nadia looked at her mother in horror, remembering the story Kara had told her. "Mother," she whispered. "Was it you? You're the one who made Mr. Simon get off the plane." Bella, caught off guard, tried to maintain her composure. "It was just a misunderstanding, dear. I was simply protecting my rights as a first-class passenger." Marco, unable to restrain himself any longer, stood up. "Your rights? What about my father's rights? Do you think it's right to humiliate someone just because they don't meet your social standards?" "Marco, please," Simon intervened, trying to calm his son. "It's not worth arguing over this." Stephen, who had been listening with growing concern, finally spoke up. "No, Simon. I think it's time we clear a few things up." Everyone at the table looked at Stephen in surprise. Bella, especially, seemed baffled by the familiarity with which her husband addressed Simon. "Stephen," Bella said in a shaky voice. "What are you talking about?" Stephen took a deep breath before continuing. "Simon and I have known each other since high school. In fact, we used to be best friends." This revelation fell like a bombshell on the dinner table. Nadia and Marco exchanged astonished glances, while Bella seemed on the verge of fainting. "Best friends?" Nadia repeated, unable to believe her ears. "Dad, why did you never tell us?" Stephen looked at Simon, seeking his approval before continuing. Simon nodded gently, understanding that the truth needed to come out. "More than 30 years ago," Stephen began. "Simon and I were two friends with two dreams. I dreamed of pursuing a music career because I was passionate about composing, and Simon dreamed of becoming a painter. Simon and I promised each other we'd use our artistic passions to bring happiness to orphan children. Because music and painting are two of the most beautiful things in life, they can suit these unfortunate children. We promised each other to use our God-given talents to earn money to fund the upbringing of at least 300 orphan children until they turned 18. We were bold in aiming so high. Simon has stayed true to his mission and purpose, while Simon continued, his voice filled with emotion. Stephen met a woman from a wealthy family, and she convinced him there were better opportunities in the financial world. Gradually, he drifted away from his passion and from me." Bella, regaining some composure, interjected. "Stephen, I did what I thought was best for you, for our future." "I know, dear," Stephen replied sadly. "But in the process, I lost my best friend and gave up a noble dream." Marco, processing all this information, looked at his father with a mixture of surprise and pride. "Dad, so that's why you've been working so hard on this project? To finish what you started over 30 years ago?" Simon nodded. "I've always believed in the potential of this idea and wanted to leave something meaningful behind, something that could help others when I'm no longer here." "When you're no longer here?" Stephen asked, alarmed. "Simon, what do you mean?" With a sigh, Simon revealed his health condition to everyone. The news was met with shock and sadness, especially from Stephen. Nadia, her eyes filling with tears, held Marco's hand tightly. "Now I understand why this project means so much to you both." Bella, who had remained silent until now, seemed to be grappling with her emotions. Finally, in a trembling voice, she said, "Simon, I'm sorry for what happened at the airport and for everything else." Her apology was met with a moment of silence, broken by Stephen. "Simon, I know it's too late, but I want to help. I want to invest in your project and make things right this time." Simon looked at his old friend with surprise and gratitude. "Stephen, you don't have to do that." "I want to," Stephen insisted. "It's the right thing to do." As the dinner came to an end, the atmosphere in the room had completely transformed. The class barriers and prejudices that had once divided the two families were now gradually fading, replaced by a sense of connection and a promise of a new beginning. Yet, as everyone prepared to part ways, none of them could foresee the new challenges and revelations that lay ahead. The story of these two families was only beginning to unfold, with the deepest secrets still left to be revealed. The days following the dinner were a whirlwind of emotions and change for both families. At Stephen's mansion, Bella was grappling with the revelations from the previous night, trying to reconcile her worldview. "I can't believe you kept that from me all these years," she chided Stephen as they sat over breakfast. Stephen sighed, stirring his coffee thoughtfully. "I'm not proud of it, Bella, but I think this is an opportunity for us to make things right." "Make things right?" Bella repeated, incredulous. "Stephen, do you realize how this could impact our reputation, our social status? Is that all you care about?" Stephen replied, his voice rising slightly. "Bella, we're talking about helping thousands of orphans, about bringing real humanity into this world. Doesn't that mean more than any gala?" Bella was silent, torn. For the first time in years, she began to question her priorities. Meanwhile, at the art warehouse, Marco and Simon were discussing recent events as they painted in various locations. "I still can't believe everything that happened last night," Marco said as he adjusted a box of paints. "It's as if our entire family story changed overnight." Simon nodded, cleaning shelves lined with canvases. "Life has a strange way of circling back, son," he said. "I never thought I'd see Stephen again, let alone have him take an interest in our old project." "Do you trust him, Dad?" Marco asked, concerned. "After everything that's happened?" Simon paused, thinking. "Stephen made mistakes, that's true, but everyone does. What matters is how we choose to correct them. I think he deserves a second chance." Thank you for watching the video all the way through. You are our biggest motivation to keep creating. Let us know where you're watching from so we can see how far this video has reached around the world. Don't forget to hit like if you found it interesting, and share it with your friends too. Marco nodded, once again admiring his father's capacity for forgiveness. "Oh, Dad, I've been thinking about something. With their family's investment, we could look into advanced treatment options for your condition." Simon smiled softly. "Son, I appreciate your concern, but I don't want the project funds spent on treating me. These orphans are more important than my health." "Nothing is more important than your health," Marco cried out, frustrated. "I won't let you give up." Before Simon could respond, the sound of a car approaching interrupted them. To their surprise, they saw Nadia stepping out of a luxury car. "Hello," she greeted cheerfully as she approached them. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Marco replied, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "What brings you here?" Nadia smiled, presenting a folder she had brought with her. "After last night's dinner, I did some research. I think I have information that could help your project." Simon looked at Nadia with curiosity. "Really? That's very kind of you." The three of them went into the makeshift office in the warehouse, where Nadia spread out the documents on the table. "I looked into government grants for orphan projects," she explained. "With the support of my father's company and these funds, the project could expand significantly." Marco looked at the documents with amazement. "This is incredible. I had no idea you knew so much about this stuff." Nadia blushed a little. "Well, I studied law. I've always been interested in these kinds of regulations." Simon watched the young couple with a sense of pride and nostalgia. "You two remind me of Stephen and me when we were young, filled with dreams and determination." "And this time," Marco said with resolve. "Those dreams will come true for all of us." As they discussed the project details, none of them realized someone was watching them from a distance. Kara, Nadia's journalist friend, had followed her to the art warehouse, intrigued by recent events. "There's a story here," she whispered to herself as she jotted down notes in her notebook. "And I'm going to uncover every detail." In the days that followed, a collaboration began to take shape between Stephen's family and Simon's. Stephen, rediscovering the mission he had once promised as a young man, started spending more time at the art warehouse, working alongside Simon. As for Bella, she struggled to adjust to this new reality. One afternoon, as Stephen was preparing to go to the warehouse, she decided to accompany him. "Are you sure?" Stephen asked, surprised. "I thought you weren't interested in this project." Bella sighed. "I wasn't, but now I want to understand. I want to see what you see in all of this." When they arrived at the art warehouse, they were greeted by Simon, who couldn't hide his surprise at seeing Bella. "Welcome," he said a bit awkwardly. "How can I help you both?" Bella, visibly nervous, took a step forward. "Mr. Simon, I want to apologize once again for my behavior, not only at the airport but for everything over the years. I've been terribly arrogant." Simon looked at her with understanding. "We all make mistakes, Ms. Bella. What matters is that we're here now, working together." "Please, call me Bella," she replied with a small smile. "And if you don't mind, I'd like to see what you're all working on." As Simon showed them the progress of the paintings, Bella began to see their work with a fresh perspective. Simon and Stephen's passion and dedication were contagious, and gradually, she felt something change within herself. "It's impressive," she finally admitted. "I never imagined that paintings could be so meaningful." Stephen smiled, taking her hand. "It's more than just aesthetics, dear. It's about changing lives, leaving a legacy for so many unfortunate children." As the sun set over the workshop, the two families, once divided by prejudice and misunderstandings, were now united for a common cause. Days turned into weeks, and the orphan painting project progressed at a rapid pace. The investment from Stephen's family enabled stronger outreach to philanthropists, and the combined talents of Ernesto and Alejandro yielded impressive results. One sunny morning, as everyone was working at the art warehouse, Nadia rushed in, clutching a newspaper. "Everyone, you have to see this," she exclaimed, breathless. They all gathered around as she spread the paper out on a makeshift table. On the front page, a glaring headline read, "Stephen's family exploits fame to seize orphanage charity funds." The article, signed by Cara, detailed the Stephen family's connection to Simon's family and accused them of scheming to profit from philanthropists' goodwill toward orphan children. The article even included photos of Nadia in work clothes at the art warehouse and of Stephen discussing plans with Simon. "This is a disaster," Bella whispered, her face pale as she read the article. "Our entire reputation." But Stephen seemed more troubled by something else. "There are details here that could only have been known by someone very close to us. How did she get this information?" Nadia and Marco exchanged guilty glances. "I think it's my fault," Nadia admitted. "Cara is, my friend. She may have taken advantage of our trust to get this information." Simon, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke up. "I'm very sorry. I never meant to bring trouble to your family." "It's not your fault, Simon," Stephen replied firmly. "If anyone is to blame, it's me for keeping our past hidden for too long." Marco tried to stay optimistic, interjecting, "Maybe this isn't so bad. I mean, the article also talks about the project and its potential to help many orphans." "Marco's right," Nadia added. "We could use this as an opportunity to turn it into a story of redemption and purpose." Bella, who had been unusually quiet, surprised everyone with her next statement. "You're all right. I've spent too many years worrying about what others think. It's time we do the right thing, no matter what society says." Her statement was met with nods and smiles of agreement. However, the peace was broken by the sound of a car approaching at high speed. A luxury car pulled up in front of them, and an impressive-looking man stepped out, Matteo, one of Stephen's key partners. "Stephen!" Matteo shouted as he approached the group. "What the hell is going on?" Do you realize what this is doing to the company? Stephen stepped forward to face his partner. Matthew, calm down. I can explain everything. Explain what? Matthew interrupted. You've thrown away years of reputation for some charity project. Investors are questioning you, talking about pulling out. While Stephen tried to reassure Matthew, Simon noticed something unusual on the horizon. Dark clouds were quickly gathering, and the wind began to pick up. I think a storm is coming, he warned. We should go inside. But no one seemed to hear him. The argument between Stephen and Matthew grew more heated, with Bella trying to mediate between them. Suddenly, a flash of lightning lit up the sky, followed by a loud clap of thunder. Rain began to pour down heavily, forcing everyone to run into the warehouse for shelter. Once inside, soaked and out of breath, the group fell silent, looking at each other. The tension was palpable. Everyone, listen, Marco broke the silence. I know things look bad right now, but this project is bigger than all of us. We're doing something that could change the lives of thousands of children. Nadia nodded, supporting her boyfriend. That's right. Isn't that more important than the opinions of a few elites? Matthew, who had been listening skeptically, seemed to soften. I have to admit, your passion is impressive. But, Stephen, you have to understand that business is still business. We can't gamble everything on a dream. At that moment, Simon, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, surprising everyone with his determined expression. Mr. Matthew, he began, his voice steady despite his frail appearance. I understand your concerns about business. But let me show you something. Simon led them to a small room in the warehouse, where they displayed a collection of his heartfelt paintings. With skilled hands, he wiped each painting while explaining the meaning behind them. As Simon spoke, everyone in the room, even Matthew, was captivated by the passion and knowledge of the free-spirited artist. When he finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, Matthew was the first to speak. These paintings are unexpectedly beautiful and meaningful. I was speechless when I walked in here, he admitted, astonished. Stephen, why didn't you show me this earlier? Stephen, visibly moved, put a hand on Simon's shoulder. Because until recently, I had also forgotten the importance of this project. Simon reminded me why I fell in love with this project all those years ago. Matthew nodded slowly, a smile forming on his face. You know, I think I was wrong. This isn't just a charity project. This is the future. As the storm raged outside, inside the warehouse, a new sense of unity and purpose began to form. The social barriers and prejudices that had once divided them seemed to dissolve before the promise of a better future for everyone. However, as the night wore on and the storm began to subside, none of them could foresee the new challenges that fate had in store for them. The real test of their unity and resolve was yet to come. The days following Kara's article and Matthew's visit were a whirlwind of activity. The orphan painting project had caught the public's attention, and soon journalists and curious people began flocking to the art warehouse to uncover the truth of the story. Simon, unused to so much attention, felt overwhelmed. Then, a press conference took place, ending in a way no one could have anticipated. Instead of a scandal, the media got a story of redemption and humanity. In the days and weeks that followed, investors, attracted not only by the stunning artwork but by the story behind it, quickly offered their support. Simon, despite his declining health, found new energy as he saw his dream finally coming to life. Bella, surprising everyone, became a passionate advocate for the project, using her social connections to promote sustainable art careers. Marco and Nadia, strengthened by the challenges they had overcome together, announced their engagement, symbolizing the unification not only of two people but of two families and two worlds once thought incompatible. Thus, the orphans who would be nurtured until they turned 18 would experience a full development, not just as a humanitarian and ethical project but as a new understanding of success, family, and legacy. The story of Stephen and Simon's family became a testament to the power of truth, forgiveness, and perseverance, proving that sometimes the hardest path, the path of honesty and redemption, yields the sweetest fruit. As the sun set over the art warehouse, now transformed into a humanitarian art center, Simon looked around with tear-filled eyes. He saw his son, his kind daughter-in-law, his redeemed old friend, and a family that had once been strangers but had now become an essential part of his life. "We did it," he whispered, his voice full of emotion. "Truly, we did it." And so, with the sky painted in hues of orange and purple alongside the vibrant colors of the artworks, an era came to an end, and a new one began, an era of hope, renewal, and, above all, second chances.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.